Alright guys, so today on Real Journey, we're going to talk about first impressions. Our first impressions of YouTubers that have obviously been beaten with the ugly stick. Oh, jeez, what's this about? Whoops. We're going to talk about first impressions of the ugly stick fishing rod. Yeah. Sorry about that. That actually makes a lot more sense. I was about to talk about that one bit. So it's like rush hour out here, but we're about to go to our little secret spot tucked away back here. So it's just another day, another journey, another real journey, and let's go. So today's episode is actually about fishing with this ugly stick, a Shakespeare ugly stick, the Elite. So as you can see, this is a 7-foot medium heavy. It's rated for 10 to 20 pound line, and we have 15 pound on here, and it goes from a 1/4 ounce to 3/4 ounce is the recommended size. So this is 7-foot medium heavy, and it's a fast action, so it has it's pretty stiff. So this is the type of rod you fish most techniques with. So we're gonna try and catch some fish with this. And yeah, it's still got tags and stuff on it. But you know what? Today's episode is not a real journey, it's a rod journey. So I guess that means we gotta redo our intro. So it's another day, another journey, another rod journey. Alright, so let's go. Oh no, too far. Oh, got one. Oh, that's a good one. Oh yeah, that's a good bass. Heck yeah, I'm dragging him. Yeah. Whoo, I only been fishing for 4 minutes. That's what my time on my GoPro says, 4 minutes. He's a little heavy guy, I'll say that. All right. It's a nice little bass right there. Not bad. Is he gonna jump? He's stretching his jaw out. Is he gonna jump? There he goes. All right, so if you watched my $1,200 stimulus check spent on fishing stuff video, you know I said I ordered an ugly stick along with the other rods in that video. And so I even said in that video that the ugly stick is a little heavy, you know, but it's a $50 rod that's considered like indestructible. You're not gonna break it on any fish, put it that way. You might break a guide or something, or the rod tip by slamming it in a door or something like that, but you're not going to break it on a fish. And so $50, they're great rods, but they are a little heavy. Someone like me that fishes all day long, I kind of knew it wasn't a great purchase for that. And I can already tell you my first impression is it's a little heavy. It is definitely a little heavy. I knew that going into it, and still I have to say it's heavy. But it handled that fish just fine. And I'm fishing with a chatterbait. And this is a fast action, medium heavy 7-foot rod. A lot of people they say they want a chatterbait rod to have more bend in it, more flex in it. That hasn't been my experience fishing with the chatterbaits. So I thought, well, this might be the sort of bait that this rod loses some fish. It did not lose that fish. I mean, we just started fishing and I caught that fish. It handled it just fine. It was very similar to my Akuma rod that I use, the green one that you see in like all my videos. But that rod is 3 times or more the price of this rod, or at least it used to be. And so obviously that other rod, it's a better rod. The only thing I'll say about fighting this fish, I thought it was a little heavier than it was. It wasn't a bad fish at all, but I thought it was a little heavier than it was, probably because the rod is a little heavy. So that's just going to take some getting used to, but that was a good fish right there. And yeah, let's get back to fishing. Let's see how well it does. Oh, got one. All right. All right, so that's a good sized fish for what we're doing. It's smaller than the last one, but it's good because we want to know how this rod handles all kinds of fish. So that's not a very big fish. All right, I'm out here sweating. I just saw 2 mosquitoes the size of puppies. That's usually my cue. It's time to go. All right, guys, so it was getting pretty humid, pretty hot. I was hot. Apparently the camera was hot. The dang lens was fogged up. So we're gonna finish out the video right here in the studio where it's nice and air conditioned. So my first impressions on the Ugly Stik. Well, it's what I thought it was. It's heavy. I'm used to using really light rods. They feel so comfortable in my hand. So to go from one of those to a heavy Ugly Stik, it just felt heavy. But I only fished for a little over an hour, and by the time I was done fishing, I actually felt like it felt lighter. So I was actually kind of getting used to the weight, but I'm also 235 pounds. So if you're like a smaller person, or maybe you're a kid, it might not be the right rod for you. It might feel too heavy in your hand. You might, if you fish a lot, if you go out and fish all day long, you know, you might not like it. You might get stronger and it might end up being a great rod for you. You get used to it. You know, I can't tell you, you know, when it comes to that sort of thing. But I will say some things about it that it does well. Okay, first of all, it's well known that it's like almost an indestructible rod. They have that clear tip on it. They did it with the older ones and they did it with this one, the Elite Ugly Stik. That clear tip tells you that it's made out of something. I don't know the science behind it, but it's made out of something that your rod tip doesn't break so easily. If you used a lot of cheap rods like I have during my life, I've used quite a few rods that the rod tip has broke on me. And I've actually had quite a few rods where people borrowed them while they're fishing with me and they broke. I mean, way too many rods I've had break on me. So that makes it tempting for me to have an Ugly Stik around because I don't want my rods always breaking. So this is the type of rod that will last. That it will do. So another thing that's good about its durability is this particular one. I'm not so sure about the older ones. I'm not on top of my Ugly Stik rods, but I'm pretty sure with this one is different from the older ones in that the guides are like a single guide, whereas like a lot of rods, they have those guides where there's that like inner ceramic piece that can pop out sometimes or break. And when that happens, your line can get weakened when you make casts and stuff, and you end up getting line breaks when you hook into a fish and you're fighting a fish. It's rubbing against the metal there and ends up breaking. So, or a chipped ceramic piece, you know, and your line ends up breaking all the time. You're like, why is my line breaking? Check your guides. Okay? So in this case, apparently that's like a single thing, and it's to prevent that from happening with this rod.
So, I mean, that's great too. I mean, because once that happens, you got to replace the guides. And if you're using a cheaper rod, you don't want to go out and always be replacing guides, because you might as well just buy another rod if you have to keep putting money into the guides. And so for a $50 rod, it's got a lot of things going well for it. I will say that I felt the sensitivity with a small fish, and I felt the sensitivity with a bigger fish. So that rod, so I know it's like an indestructible rod, so it can handle big fish. Okay, I wasn't worried about that. But then I caught that small fish, and I felt the bite. So I'm like, that's good. That I can feel the sensitivity in the rod. So it's a strong rod, but it doesn't lose all of its sensitivity. It may not be as sensitive as a much more expensive rod. No, you know, there's things you get often when you pay more. But this does have a lot going for it at that $50 price point. I will say that. So is this the rod for you, the right rod for you? I don't know. I don't know your situation. I'll say this. I don't think it's the right rod for me. Because I fish like every other day, and I fish hours and hours more than what I did in this particular instance, oftentimes. And it just, it would probably get annoying just holding a heavy rod every day. And so I'd much rather a lighter rod that has the same amount of sensitivity and stuff. But I bet you this is a good rod for a lot of saltwater techniques and other species, and not just bass fishing. So those are my first impressions. That's about all I can say about the rod. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And as far as like the ugly YouTuber, you know, thing, the person I was talking about is obviously... Oh, lights just went out there for a second. That was weird. But anyways, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell, and you'll be notified every time I post a new video. And we're out. Peace.